I know exactly what you're thinking when you look at me. No, I'm not a ninja. I just dress like one. I know you've already guessed it. I am a Muslim. And this black cloak that I'm wearing is called an abaya. You know, I always loved wearing abayas, not only to protect my privacy and to feel proud for being identified as a Muslim, but also because I can literally get away with wearing hot pink pajamas and bunny slippers underneath, and no one would ever know. But I'm not today, don't worry. Yeah, I'm actually wearing these sassy stilettos with hot pink pajamas. But you know, 2008 was actually the last time I wore an abaya in public. Now, I remember that summer, I had gone grocery shopping with my 2 boys, my then 3-year-old Jibril and my 3-month-old Idris. Now, I had just parked my car in the parking lot when suddenly I see this tall, blonde woman charging towards me and shouting, "I can see your disgusting dress touching my car. Get away from my car, you effing terrorist!" Her car was parked right next to mine. Now, as she started yelling profanities, Jibril was petrified. He started pulling on my abaya, saying, "Mom, let's go." Now, I was terrified too, you know, but I didn't want to show my fear in front of him. Plus, Idris was still in the car. I couldn't leave. So I pleaded to her, "Can I please just get my baby out? I swear my dress is not going to touch your car." But she wouldn't stop yelling. So I threatened to call the police as I took down her license plate number. And then I grabbed both my kids and scrambled towards the store. Next thing I knew, in her white SUV, honking aggressively, she started accelerating straight towards us. She missed us by a mere foot. That lady had used a car as a weapon against me. You know, at that point, I broke down in tears. Now, there were some people around who noticed my anguish, but they just walked along as if nothing happened. There was this one bystander who said to me, "I saw everything. That was just wrong. Oh my God, I'm so sorry you had to go through all this." You know, at that time, all I wanted to say to her was, "Then why didn't you do something?" I had never felt this unsafe in my country before. But all of that changed after 9/11. The horrific attacks of 9/11 gave birth to Islamophobia, which is fear of Islam or Muslims leading to hate. When we dare to take a chance, only then can we end Islamophobia. Now, back in 1995, my parents and I migrated from India to America in pursuit of the American dream. Now, by American dream, I don't mean owning a 7-Eleven. I mean the American dream of being part of a country that embodies such high moral values and principles as liberty, justice, and equality for all. But 9/11 changed my life and the lives of millions of Muslims in America, because that day, my faith became weaponized by 19 terrorists. 19 terrorists who hijacked my religion along with those planes. And from that day onwards, my entire Muslim community of 1.6 billion, that's right, 1.6 billion were forced to bear the responsibility for those crimes. And you know, the last 16 years have been full of hate crimes against innocent Muslims in America who had nothing to do with those attacks. You know, just imagine random people yelling profanities at you in malls or in grocery stores. Imagine parents fearfully pulling their kids away from yours at parks or at play gyms. Imagine being told, "Get out of my country, you camel jockey." That's sad. Not only because it's hateful, but also because in India, we ride elephants, not camels. But this hate, This vitriol, this was my reality. And the extent of Islamophobia that surrounded me. It was frightening just leaving my house because I never knew what day would bring me and my kids hateful stares or verbal abuse. And that incident, that hateful incident in the parking lot, that was my breaking point. I remember after that rushing to the police station sobbing. I gave them the license plate number along with a description of the lady and the car, only to be told, "What happened to you was wrong. I'm so sorry. But since all of you guys are okay, thankfully nobody's hurt, there's really nothing we can do." That's when I realized that those who are meant to protect us all can't protect me. I withdrew into a shell and developed a social phobia, a phobia of white Americans. Now, that phobia eventually turned into agoraphobia. I couldn't leave the four walls of my house in fear of the hatred that awaited me outside. I literally felt terrorized. So I decided to seek professional help. Now, when I shared my sense of helplessness with a therapist, she said, "I'm so sorry to hear everything that you went through. But, you can't fully blame them for acting this way. After all, it's your people who've been causing all of this havoc around the world." That's when I realized that those who are meant to help heal us all can't heal me. Islamophobia, this fear of the other, creates a wall of division that threatens our shared humanity. I had never felt this hopeless, this alone in my own country before. Now, it wasn't until I started noticing my oldest son, Jibril, exhibit similar anxiety in public places around fellow Americans that it dawned on me that I have to do something about this now. I couldn't have my boys fearing the very country in which they were born. So after months of searching, I was finally able to find the right therapist and the right treatment for myself to help me regain some of my self-confidence and self-esteem. And that's when I decided to dare myself. So I took my first step out of the house. And my second step, well, some people take baby steps. I took on the number one fear of most people. No, I don't mean sitting next to a Muslim in a plane. I mean public speaking, because that was the only way I could reach out to the very people I feared, my fellow white Americans. I bet white people had no idea they could be so scary. So I started speaking at various venues, from churches, schools, synagogues, corporations. I did local TV interviews, just sharing personal stories to give my fellow Americans a chance to get to know me, a Muslim. And the amazing thing was that when I started speaking before them, I started developing close friendships with many of them, which made me realize that my own years of traumatic experiences of Islamophobia had actually turned me fearful of all white Americans until I took a chance to get to know them personally. And through our stories of vulnerability and courage, we began to recognize and embrace our similarities. I remember this one time, a Christian audience member came up to me and said, "Before I heard you speak, I always wondered, why do Muslims hate Americans? But I now realize that you are an American. There is really no us versus them." Then this one time, my Jewish mentor confided in me saying, "Sarah, growing up, we always heard how Jews and Muslims can never be friends, how they're so different from each other. But after being your friend, I see how much we have in common." And then my favorite. My atheist friend once posted a picture of us on Facebook with a caption, "My favorite Muslim." To which I replied, "Dude, I am the only Muslim you know." So you see, when we take a chance to get to know those we perceive as different from us, we remove that fear of the other. Fear is the fuel that feeds the fire of hate. So when hate leaves the heart, it makes space for what emerges out of those relationships: love, respect, and mutual understanding. Because we come to realize that even though we do come in different shapes and sizes and colors, we still share the same hopes, the same dreams, the same fears. It is our shared humanity that brings harmony to a civilized society. Now, sadly, today, in America, we are at a juncture in our lives where our harmony is being threatened. Anti-Muslim hate crimes have been occurring at the highest level since 9/11. There's talk of a Muslim registry, of putting surveillance on American Muslims, of banning Muslims from entering the US altogether. Muslim women who wear a hijab or an abaya are becoming easy targets of hate crimes. Hate kills humanity. So Islamophobia is not only a threat to our civil liberties, but it's also a threat to the integrity of this entire country. I ask you all to dig back into your past, your stories from generations ago. Apart from Native Americans, we are all immigrants here, isn't it? Either first-generation immigrant like myself or descendants of immigrants. So it's the values and the principles of liberty, justice, and equality for all that brought the best and the brightest minds to this nation to make it one of the best nations of all. So when those values and principles are being threatened because of Islamophobia, then it is our moral responsibility to not only stop the perpetuation of hate, but also to reach out to the victims of it. So you might ask, what can we do to help change this phenomena? Well, I ask you to take a chance to get to know your Muslim neighbor, your kid's Muslim classmate, your Muslim doctor, your Muslim lawyer, or even your Muslim Uber driver. It only takes getting to know one Muslim personally to realize that Muslims are being unfairly represented in public eye. Scholar of religions Raza Aslan once said in an interview, "The media's job is to report on the planes that crash, not the planes that take off safely." So if all you knew about planes was from what you saw in the media, then you'd assume every single plane crashes. So you see, the media only reports the 0.0002% of Muslims who commit terrorist acts wrongfully in the name of their religion, and not the millions of peace-loving Muslims who contribute to society. So if all you knew about Muslims was from what you saw in the media, then you would fear Muslims, assuming every Muslim is either a terrorist or a sympathizer. So take a chance to get to know us. And if you ever see a Muslim being harassed, please don't be a bystander. If you can't intervene, just reach out to them. Comfort them, console them, just let them know that they are not the other. I stand here today as an American, sharing my story of outreach to the very people I once feared, while wearing hot pink pajamas with stilettos. But not just me, many Muslim organizations and individuals have been actively reaching out today, whether it be through publicly condemning terrorism, or through clearing misconceptions about the Quran, or holding interfaith activities like open mosque days. There's a verse in our Holy Quran where God says, "We have made you into nations and tribes so that you may get to know one another." So if we wish to preserve this country as a nation of diversity and equality for all, then we must take a chance to get to know one another and overcome this fear of the other. When we dare to take a chance, only then can we end Islamophobia and reclaim our shared humanity. So I dare you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.